a Rabbinic Anthology selected by C.G. Montefiore and H.Loewe. At the end of Herbert Lowe's introduction, I appended the part that explains the abbreviations. Continuing 947, namely that you suffer them to curse and stone you. The condition I made with thee, I make with them, was left out. For God had previously, in sending Moses and Aaron to the Israelites, Exodus 6:13, said to them, know that the Israelites are stubborn and rebellious, and I give you a charge to them only on the condition that you receive it knowingly, that they will curse you and stone you. Sifra Numbers, Beha Aloteka, section 92, folio 25b, 25a, h, page 93 and 91. Returning to prayer, there are many rules about it, partly because the rabbis, unfortunately, could not help making rules and find distinctions about everything, partly because by prayer they often mean statutory prayer. The fixed prayers which a pious Jew is bound or ordered are expected to repeat 2 or 3 times a day. See 928. Thus we get 948, Tunch B, Meketz, 98A, finished to 98B, C, selection 893, or just listen to these programs in order. How many times daily ought a man to pray? So taught our teachers. One should not pray more than thrice daily, for the 3 patriarchs instituted the 3 statutory prayers. Abraham, the morning service, Genesis 19:27, and by that they mean the dawn to sunrise time period. Isaac, the afternoon service, Genesis 24:63, and Jacob, the evening service. Genesis 28:11. Daniel too prayed 3 times on his knees, Daniel 6:10, but Daniel did not specify the hours. Well, we see indication that possibly more than 3 time periods were used, but David, however, did so when he said evening, morning, and noonday. Psalm 55:17. Therefore, man should not pray more often than thrice daily. R. Johanan said, would that man were capable of praying continuously all day long. Antoninus asked R. Judah, the saint, what about praying at every hour? Judah said, it is forbidden. He said, why should it be forbidden? Judah replied, so as not to treat the Almighty with frivolity. Antoninus was dissatisfied. What did Judah do? Early next morning he went to Antoninus and said to him, hail, O Lord. After an hour he went in again and hailed Antoninus as imperator. After a 3rd hour he said, peace, O king. Antoninus said, why do you mock at majesty? Judah replied, let your ears hear what your mouth uttered. If you, a king of flesh and blood, say this, when greeted hourly, what shall be said of the one who mocks the supreme King of kings, the Holy One, blessed be he? Should one importune him at every hour? Tunch B, Meketz, 98A, finished to 98B. See our selection 893. One thing about that's agreed upon with the Islamic tradition is that the Israelite prophets were to call the people towards 3 prayers. dawn or morning, as we've had in this translation. It's to be started before sunrise, obviously. The evening, and the afternoon. But both the evening and the dawn prayers are supposed to be said closer to the start of the time. There is a tradition that waiting till stars come out, but that's not what they were commanded. 940, for the evening prayer. 949, Tanch B Meketz, 98B, finish. C selection 937. R. Joseph B. Chalafta taught, there are proper times for prayer, as it says, as for me, let my prayer come before thee at an acceptable time. Psalm 69:13. What is an acceptable time? When the community is at prayer. Therefore a man should rise early to pray, for nothing is greater than the power of prayer. Tanch B. Meketz, 98B, finish. C selection 937. Public morning prayer was always held at a very early hour. An interesting way in which, among the rabbis, the inward and outward are blended together is shown by the following. Rules are laid down about the place towards which a man must turn in prayer, i.e. towards Palestine, Jerusalem in specific, the temple, etc. To us, moderns, all this seems very needless, as if it mattered a pin whether our bodies face one way or the other, and yet these rules are prefaced thus. 950, bearer 30A, a blind man or one who is unable to locate the directions should direct his heart to his Father in heaven, bearer 30A. Now, let us remember that Father has more literal meanings, and certainly figuratively, I've explained in other videos how biblically a person is either a child of God or a child of Satan. And obviously those aren't in literal terms, except, using different language like this, right? A pure production and intelligence belonging to or on the side of, that sort of stuff. H.L.'s note, Mr. Montefiore's pen sticks in my gizzard. In one sense, it certainly does not matter which way we face when we pray, so long as our hearts, as the rabbis said, are directed towards our Father in heaven. The forms are supposed to be in obedience to that, right? Still worse, if such a detail as direction is given undue importance, and yet the Christian has his eastward position, and the Muslim his qibla, turning to a given place is an old and natural idea. Solomon, when he dedicated the temple, said, hearken to the supplication of thy people Israel when they shall pray towards this place. 1 Kings 8:30. And the previous verse gives the reason that thine eyes may be open toward this house night and day, even toward the place of which thou hast said, my name shall be there, that thou mayest hearken unto the prayer which thy servant shall make towards this place. We see then a mystical symbolism in this action of turning. It was a gesture of aligning oneself with God, a kind of imitatio Dei, since God too was anthropomorphically supposed to be looking to the place. Gestures and symbols may be exaggerated sometimes, but such misuse does not condemn their essential worth when properly employed. If we abandon all such symbols in our different spheres of activity, military, juristic, academic, and civic, in the church, in the palace, then we can certainly be very modern. Then other people have power over us through symbols, and we don't have grasp of the symbols, right? But our life will be the poorer. It will become very drab and commonplace. And in our process of elimination, where shall we stop? To many people, unfortunately, the sanctity of an oath would be diminished if the time-honored ceremonial were no longer associated with it. The sense of duty towards the state is linked very largely to the monarchical idea, and so on, assuming that symbols are not misapplied, and assuming also that they are picturesque and instructive, then surely anyone is, in principle, as valuable or as valueless as any other. And it is nothing but subjective reasoning to say, this must stay and this must go, and I am sure that Mr. Montefiore does not want them all to go. CP13 and CIII, H.Loewe's note. We are just starting page 357, and the letters, I know that's 103, but that distinguishes the introduction. So prayer is better than sacrifice. 951, Tanch Wayera, section 1, folio 31b. God said to Israel, be assiduous in regard to devotion, for there is no finer quality than prayer. Prayer is greater than all the sacrifices. Isaiah 1:13, Isaiah 1:11-13. Even if a man is unworthy, that his prayer be answered, and mercy shown him. Nonetheless, if he pray much and supplicate for grace, I grant him mercy, as it says, all the paths of the Lord are loving kindness and truth. Psalm 25:10. I put loving kindness before truth, strictness, and righteousness, i.e. mildness, before justice. 89:15. Note 20e. Tanch Wayera, section 1, folio 31b. 952. Sephra, Deuteronomy, Barakah, section 343, folio 142ab. And this is the blessing which Moses, words left out, Deuteronomy 33:1. Moses did not begin with Israel's needs until he had opened with God's praise. He was like an orator standing by the judge's seat, who was hired by a client to plead for him. But before speaking of the client's needs, the orator opened with the praises of the king, saying, happy is the world by reason of his rule, by reason of his justice. All the people joined in the praise, and he opened his client's case. He ended too with praise of the king. So did Moses, so too did David and Solomon, so too did the elders who composed the 18 benedictions for Israel to use in prayer. They did not open with Israel's needs, but with the great, mighty, and awful God. Holy art thou, and awful is thy name. Only then came, thou loosest the bound and healest the sick. Finally, they ended with, we give thee thanks. Note 20f. Sephra, Deuteronomy, Barakah, section 343, folio 142ab. This early reference to the 18 benedictions is interesting. For the prayers concerned, see prayer book page 44, 45, 51. See our selection 928. It would fill too much room to quote many of the old Rabbinic prayers, which can easily be found in the prayer book published by Eyre and Spottiswoode at 2S 6D. Yet, for those who do not possess that book, I will quote some of the prayers here. Here is a part of the abstract of the 18 benedictions, the tefillah, i.e. the prayer par excellence. In the Bible, the word tefillah really meant prayer in general, Isaiah 1:15, 953. Bear 29a, per book, page 55. Give us understanding, O Lord our God. And by Lord, they mean God as a verb and noun. To know thy ways, circumcise our hearts to fear thee, and forgive us so that we may be redeemed. Keep us far from sorrow, satiate us on the pastures of thy land, and gather our scattered ones from the four corners of the earth. Let the righteous rejoice in the rebuilding of thy city, and in the establishment of thy temple, and in the flourishing of the horn of David thy servant, and in the clear shining light of the son of Jesse, mine anointed. Even before we call, do thou answer. Blessed art thou, O Lord, probably increasing existence, who hearkenest unto prayer. The date of this prayer is probably pre-Christian. For a chronological analysis of the 18 benedictions, see L. Finkelstein in JQR and S, volume 16, numbers 1 and 2, Bear 29A, per book 55. And even the number would have probably cued us to say, maybe, yeah, that was pre-Christian, because 6 plus 6 plus 6, that wouldn't have gone over well after they changed the number in the book of Revelation from 616 to 666. Well, I mean, that reference refers to the same individual, but here's a night prayer. 954, Bear 60b, per book page 293. Blessed art thou, O Lord our God, King of the universe, who makest the bands of sleep to fall upon mine eyes and slumber upon mine eyelids. May it be thy will, O Lord my God, probably established, right? And God of my fathers, to suffer me to lie down in peace, and to let me rise up again in peace. Let not my thoughts trouble me, nor evil dreams, nor evil fancies, but let my rest be perfect before thee. O lighten mine eyes, lest I sleep the sleep of death, for it is thou who givest light to the apple of the eye. Blessed art thou, O Lord, who givest light to the whole world in thy glory. Bear 60b, per book 293. A prayer for the morning. 955, Bear 60b, per book 5. O my God, the soul which thou gavest me is pure. Thou didst create it, thou didst form it, thou didst breathe it into me, thou preservest it within me, and thou wilt take it from me, but wilt restore it to me hereafter. So long as the soul is within me, I will give thanks unto thee, O Lord my God, and God of my fathers, sovereign of all worlds, Lord of all souls. Blessed art thou, O Lord, who restorest souls unto the dead. Bear 60b, per book page 5. Prayer of R. Unias disciples on awakening, 956. T.J. Bear 4, section 2, folio 7d, line 49. Blessed art thou, O Lord, who quickenest the dead. May it be thy will, O Lord my God, to give me a good heart, a good yetzer, a good hope, a good name, a good eye, a good soul, a lowly soul, and a humble spirit. May thy name not be profaned among or through us, and make us not a mockery in the mouth of men. May our end not be cut off, nor our hope be a vexation. And may we not need the gifts of flesh and blood, and put not our sustenance into their hands, for their gifts are small, and the shame which they inflict is great, and place our portion in thy law. With those who do thy will, build up thy house, thy sanctuary, thy city, thy temple, speedily in our days. T.J. Bear 4, section 2, folio 7d, line 49. A very ancient prayer, 957, Bear 60b, per book, page 7. May it be thy will, O Lord our God and God of our fathers, to make us familiar with thy law, and to make us cleave to thy commandments. O lead us not into sin or transgression, iniquity, temptation, or shame. Let not the evil inclination have sway over us. Keep us far from a bad man and a bad companion. Make us cleave to the good inclination and to good works. Subdue out evil inclination, so that it may submit itself unto thee, and let us obtain this day and every day grace, favor, and mercy in thine eyes and in the eyes of all who behold us, and bestow loving kindness upon us. Blessed art thou, O Lord, who bestowest loving kindness upon thy people Israel. Bear 60b, per book, page 7. Another very ancient morning prayer, which goes back to Talmudic times, is as follows: 958, per book, page 7, Abraham's Companion, page XXI. Sovereign of all worlds, not because of our righteous acts do we lay our supplications before thee, but because of thine abundant mercies. What are we? What is our life? What is our piety? What our righteousness? What our helpfulness? What our strength? What our might? What shall we say before thee, O Lord our God and God of our fathers? Are not all the mighty men as not before thee, the men of renown as though they had not been, the wise as if without knowledge, and the men of understanding as if without discernment? For most of their works are void, and the days of their lives are vanity before thee, and the preeminence of man over the beast is not. For all is vanity, save only the pure soul, which will hereafter render its judgment and account before the throne of thy glory. Per book, page 7, and Abraham's Companion, page XXI. The words from save to glory occur only in the rite of the Spanish and Portuguese Jews, the Sephardim, because of might better be rendered relying on. Dr. Abrahams says that in this passage we have the true rabbinic spirit on the subject of grace and works. The rabbis held that reward and punishment were meted out in some sort of accordance with a man's righteousness and sin, but nothing that man, with his small powers and finite opportunities, can do constitutes a claim on the favor of the Almighty and the Infinite. In the final resort, all that man receives from the divine hand is an act of grace. God rewards obedience. This, as Moore says, is the constant teaching of the Hebrew Bible, and it is also the constant teaching of the rabbis. Yet, as Moore also says, man's good deeds do not, of themselves, lay God under an obligation. God does not owe him a recompense for doing his duty, but God has put himself under obligation by this promise of reward. And in this sense, man, in doing what God requires of him, deserves the recompense. Volume 2, page 90. There is, in my opinion, little fundamental difference between the doctrine of reward as held by the rabbis and as stated by Jesus in the Synoptic Gospels. Act in a given way, and thou shalt have treasure in heaven. Mark 10:21. Act in a given way, and so lay up treasures for yourselves in heaven. Matthew 6:20. Endure persecution, for great will be your reward in heaven. Matthew 5:12. Do not act in a particular manner, or else ye shall have no reward with your Father in heaven. Matthew 6:1. He who does a certain good deed shall in no wise lose his reward. Mark 9:41. Love your enemies, or left out, and your reward shall be great. Luke 6:35. Well done, good and faithful slave. Enter thou into the joy of thy Lord. Matthew 25:21. It is true that the rabbis made larger use of the doctrine of reward and pressed and emphasized it more eagerly and frequently than Jesus. On the other hand, The rabbis, as we have seen, and as the prayer shows, were fully alive to the higher motives for right action. We have heard their insistence upon lishma, upon love, upon doing the commands for their own sake, and so on. And we have heard too how they taught that man has no true claim upon God, and that though man may expect recompense, he must not send up his good deeds as a sort of check which God is bound to honor in the guise of reward. Another summary of the 18 benedictions, 959, T.J. Bearer 4, Section 4, Folio 8b, line 25. The needs of thy people Israel are many, but their knowledge is small. May it be thy will, O Lord our God, and the God of our fathers, to give to every creature his need, and to every human frame what may be lacking to it. Blessed be thou, O Lord, who hast heard the voice of my supplications. Blessed art thou, O Lord, who hearkenest unto prayer. T.J. Bearer 4, Section 4, Folio 8b, line 25. A prayer before going on a journey, 960, Bearer 29b, Prayer Book, page 310. May it be thy will, O Lord my God, to conduct me in peace, to direct my steps in peace, to uphold me in peace, and deliver me from every enemy and ambush by the way. Send a blessing upon the work of my hands, and let me obtain grace, loving kindness, and mercy in thine eyes, and in the eyes of all who behold me. Blessed art thou, O Lord, who hearkenest unto prayer. Prayer Book at Bearer 29b, Prayer Book, page 310. A brief prayer in a moment or a place of danger, 961, Bearer 29b. R. Eleazar said, do thy will in heaven above, grant tranquility of spirit to those who fear thee below, and do that which is good in thy sight. Blessed art thou, O Lord, who hearkenest unto prayer, Bearer 29b. Various prayers which were often on the lips of individuals are preserved in the Talmudim. Some of these, for example, in 970, I'm not sure if we're going to get to that in this program, but became incorporated into the daily prayer book. 962, Bearer 16b, TJ Bearer 4, Section 2, Folio 7d, line 42. R. Eleazar, on concluding his prayers, used to say, may it be thy will, O Lord our God, to cause love and brotherhood, peace and comradeship to abide in our lot, to enlarge our border with disciples, to prosper our goal with a happy end, and with hope, to set our portion in the Garden of Eden, and to fortify us in thy world with good companionship and with the good impulse, so that we may rise day by day, Rashi, and feel, literally find, the longing of our heart to fear thy name, and may the satisfaction of our souls come before thee for good. Bearer 16b, T.J. Bearer 4, Section 2, Folio 7d, line 42. 963, T. Bearer 37z, page 6, line 22. Davis and Adler's Atonement Volume, page 238. R. Eleazar B. Zadok said, my father used to pray a short prayer on the evening of the Sabbaths. Of thy love, O Lord our God, with which thou hast loved Israel, thy people, and of thy compassion, O our King, with which thou hast had compassion on the sons of thy covenant. Thou hast given to us, O Lord our God, this great and holy seventh day in love. T. Bearer 37, see page 6, line 22, Davis and Adler's Atonement Volume, page 238, 964, Bearer 16b. R. Johanan was wont to say, may it be thy will, O Lord our God, to glance at our shame and look upon our evil plight, and do thou clothe thyself in thy mercy, cover thyself with thy might, enfold thyself with thy piety, and gird thyself with thy grace, and may thy attribute of goodness and gentleness come before thee. Bearer 16b. 965, Bearer 16b, finished to 17a. Our Saphra used to pray, "May it be thy will, O Lord our God, to grant peace in the household above and the household below, and among the students who occupy themselves with thy Torah, whether they devote themselves thereto for its own sake or not for its own sake. And as for them that devote themselves thereto, not for its own sake, and may it be for thy will, that they shall, at last, devote themselves thereto for its own sake." Bear 16b, finished to 17a. H.L.'s note, household above. This is Dr. Cohen's rendering. I prefer retinue, as in selection 913. Above, for the Hebrew, familia, or familia, is not family in the modern English sense, but it retains the idea of famulus. I observe that Goldschmidt has in Der Oberen und in der Unteren Familie, and so does Pinner, who adds a note that the reference is to the angelic hosts. See selection 707 and 1643. That's H.L.'s note. The household below are the sages. 966, Bear 16b, prayer book page 154. Rab was wont to say, "May it be thy will, O Lord our God, to grant us long life, a life of peace, a life of good, a life of blessing, a life of sustenance, a life of bodily vigor, a life marked by the fear of sin, a life free from shame and reproach, a life of prosperity and honor, a life in which the love of Torah and the fear of heaven shall cling to us, a life wherein thou fulfillest the desires of the heart for good." Bear 16b, prayer book page 154. The prayer of R. Tanchum B. Escolestate, 967, T.J. Bear 4, Section 2, Folio 7D, line 61. May it be thy will, O Lord our God and God of our fathers, that thou break and cause to cease the yoke of the evil Yetzer in our hearts, for thou hast created us to do thy will, and we are bound to do thy will. Thou desirest it, and we are desirous, and what prevents? The dough in the leaven, i.e. the evil Yetzer, it is revealed and known before thee that we have not within us the strength to resist it. Therefore may it be thy will to cause it to cease from us and crush it, and then we will do thy will with a perfect trust. T.J. Bear for Section 2, Folio 9D, line 61. Two prayers of R. Chia B. Abba, 968. T.J. Bear for Section 2, Folio 7D, line 46. Let our hearts be united in the fear of thy name. Bring us near to what thou lovest. Keep us far from what thou hatest. May it be thy will, O Lord our God, and the God of our fathers, that thou put it into our hearts to perform a perfect repentance before thee, so that we be not ashamed before our fathers in the world to come. T.J. Bear for Section 2, Folio 7D, line 46. Our Padat's prayer, T.J. Bear for Section 2, Folio 7D, line 57, Gaster's Prayer Book, page 140. May it be thy will, O Lord my God and God of my fathers, that no hatred against any man come into our hearts, and no hatred against us come into the hearts of any man, and may none be jealous of us, and may we not be jealous of any, and may thy law be our labor all the days of our lives, and may our words be as supplications before thee. T.J. Bear for 2-7D 57 per book 140. Mar Bar Rabbina's prayer, 970, Bear 17a per book page 54. O my God, Guard my tongue from evil and my lips from speaking guile, and to such as curse me, let my soul be dumb. Yes, let my soul be unto all as the dust. Open my heart to the Torah, and let my soul pursue thy commandments. If any design evil against me, speedily make their counsel of none effect, and frustrate their designs. Let the words of my mouth and the meditation of my heart be acceptable before thee, O Lord, my rock and redeemer. Bear 17a, per book page 54. Mar Zuthra used this prayer in a house of mourning. At the grace after meals, 971, bearer 46b. Blessed art thou, O Lord, our God, King of the universe. O God, our Father, our King, our Creator, our Redeemer, our Holy One, the Holy One of Jacob, the living King, who art kind and dealest kindly, true God and Judge, who judgest with righteousness, and in judgment takest the souls of men unto thyself, who rulest in the world, doing therein according to thy will, for all thy ways are judgment, and all is thine. We are thy people and thy servants, and in all circumstances it is our duty to give thanks unto thee and to bless thee. O thou who repairest the breaches in Israel, mayest thou also repair this breach in Israel, granting us life. Bearer 46b. This prayer is still used, see prayer book page 283. Our Hamnuna's prayer on the Day of Atonement was incorporated in the prayer book page 263, 972, Yoma 87b. O my God, before I was formed, I was nothing worth, and now that I have been formed, I am but as though I had not been formed. Dust am I in my life, and how much more so in my death. Behold, I am before thee like a vessel filled with shame and confusion. O may it be thy will, O Lord my God and God of my fathers, that I may sin no more, and as to the sins I have committed, purge them away in thine abounding compassion, though not by means of affliction and sore diseases. Yoma 87b. A very ancient prayer alluded to in the Talmud. Bear 11b is said immediately before the Shema at the evening service. 973, per book 96. With everlasting love thou hast loved the house of Israel, thy people. A law and commandments, statutes and judgments hast thou taught us. Therefore, O Lord our God, when we lie down and when we rise up, we will meditate on thy statutes. Yea, we will rejoice in the words of thy law and in thy commandments forever. For they are our life and the length of our days, and we will meditate on them day and night. And mayest thou never take away thy love from us. Blessed art thou, O Lord, who lovest thy people Israel. Per book page 96. For an interesting reference to this prayer, see selection 170. Is it Jeremiah that has a verse like the opening part? Another and longer form of the same prayer is recited in the morning service, 974, per book page 39 and 40. With abounding love, thou hast loved us, O Lord our God. With great and exceeding pity hast thou pitied us, O our Father, our King, for our Father's sake, who trusted in thee, and whom thou didst teach the statutes of life. Be also gracious unto us, and teach us. O our Father, merciful Father, ever compassionate, have mercy upon us. O put it into our hearts to understand and to discern, to mark, learn, and teach, to heed, to do, and to fulfill in love all the words of instruction in thy law. Enlighten our eyes in thy law, and let our hearts cleave to thy commandments, and unite our hearts to love and fear thy name, so that we be never put to shame, because we have trusted in thy holy, great, and revered name. We shall rejoice and be glad in thy salvation. O bring us in peace from the four corners of the earth, and make us go upright to our land. For thou art a God who worketh salvation. Thou hast chosen us from all peoples and tongues, and hast brought us near unto thy great name forever in faithfulness, that we might in love give thanks unto thee and proclaim thy unity. Blessed art thou, O Lord, who hast chosen thy people Israel in love. Per book page 39 and 40. An ancient and famous prayer, at least as old as the Talmud, is known by its opening Hebrew word as the Alenu prayer. A good deal of information about it will be found in Abraham's Companion, page LXXXVI to LXXXVII. Yeah, I know that is 86 to 88, but maybe it's the same thing as this book. There's an introduction and that sort of thing. And in more 1, 434, and 2, 373, the undisguised pride in the supposed privilege and peculiar position of Israel in the eyes of God, and the no less undisguised disdain of the heathen in the open lines of the prayer are unpleasant to us moderns, but the universalistic hope in the latter part of the prayer is no less characteristically rabbinic. 975 per book page 76 and 77. It is our duty to praise the Lord of all things, to ascribe greatness to him who formed the world in the beginning, since he has not made us like the nations of other lands, and has not placed us like other families of the earth, since he has not assigned unto us a portion as unto them, nor a lot as unto all their multitude. For we bend the knee and offer worship and thanks before the supreme King of kings, the Holy One, blessed be he, who stretched forth the heavens and laid the foundations of the earth, the seat of whose glory is in the heavens above, and the abode of whose might is in the loftiest heights. He is our God, there is none else. In truth, he is our King, there is none besides him, as it is written in his law. And thou shalt know this day, and lay it to thine heart, that the Lord, he is God in heaven above, and upon the earth beneath, there is none else. We therefore hope in thee, O Lord our God, that we may speedily behold the glory of thy might, when thou wilt remove the abominations from the earth, and the idols will be utterly cut off, when the world will be perfected under the kingdom of the Almighty, and all the children of flesh will call upon thy name, when thou wilt turn unto thyself all the wicked of the earth. Let all the inhabitants of the world perceive and know that unto thee every knee must bow, every tongue must swear before thee, O Lord our God. Let them bow and fall, and unto thy glorious name let them give honor. Let them all accept the yoke of thy kingdom, and do thou reign over them speedily and forever and ever. For the kingdom is thine, and to all eternity thou wilt reign in glory. As it is written in thy law, the Lord shall reign forever and ever. And it is said, and the Lord shall be king over all the earth. In that day shall the Lord be one, and his name one. Per book page 76 and 77. H.L.'s note. In regard to the translation of the Alenu, I venture in all humility to differ from the late Mr. Singer, who has here given a literal translation which obscures the real meaning of the prayer. Let me cite from other prayer books. The Sephardic Rite has, since he has not made us like some nations of other countries, nor established us like other families of the earth. This is from De Sola, 2nd edition, 1852, volume 1, page 51. It is substantially the same in A. Haleva's prayer book, London 1852, not page, and partially the same in Gaster. It is so rendered in A.P. Mendis's Ashkenazic Liturgy, London 1864, A. Ben B. Crahange and E. A. Estrue in the French prayer book, Paris, 1864, have Il ne nous a pas traité comme les people de certaines contrées. Il ne nous a pas confondu avec toutes les tribus de la terre. I never learned how to read French, so. Finally, let me cite what I consider the best and most accurate rendering, that in Poole's prayer book, page 90, it is for us to praise the universal Lord, to acclaim the greatness of the God of creation, for he has not made us heathens, nor allowed us to be a pagan people, nor given us their inheritance, and the destiny of their masses that bow down to vanity and hollowness, and pray to a God that saves not. And what they mean by pagan, I'm not quite sure, because pagan and heathen aren't really quite the same thing as a type of religion, are they? They might mean polytheists, they might mean idolaters, they might mean, who knows what exactly the term is. Well, I mean, if you know the Hebrew word, maybe I can tell you what that is. Or if you know the Hebrew word, you probably know what it is already, but you know what I mean. The object of these qualifying clauses is to make the original meaning clear, namely that it is a thanksgiving to God for having been favored with a knowledge of him instead of having grown up amid idolatrous surroundings. True, the idolater who finds God is more praiseworthy than the Jew who worships him because his father and mother have taught him to do so. The esteem in which proselytes are held is shown by passages in chapter 30. This prayer, however, is concerned not with proselytes, but with Israel. It is a joyful recognition of privilege and a humble declaration of duty. In this, there is nothing particularist or offensive. It would be offensive if the prayer, as its literal interpretation might be misconstrued to imply, were an arrogant assertion of superiority over contemporaries, in this case, monotheists, and our spiritual equals, but the prayer, by reason of age and environment, did not refer to Christians. For details, see Abraham's note, Art in JESV, and Elbogen der Juden, or is it der Juden, Gottesdienst. The references in the index. As usual, it was a convert to Christianity who was responsible for this fable, and who discovered that the numerical value of and nothingness could amount to that of Jesus, just as another hit upon the fact that the initials of Akum, worshippers of stars and the zodiac, Ovedeh, Kokabim, Umazalot, could represent Ovedeh, Christus, Maria, worshippers of Christ and Mary. The words in question and nothingness do not occur in the version given by Mr. Montefiore, for after their multitude and before, for we bend the knee. A verse is omitted in the Ashkenazic rite. It runs thus: for they bow down to vanity and nothingness and worship a God that cannot save. From Isaac 37 and 45:20. It will be found in other rites. In Muslim lands, where there was no inquisition, the misrepresentations of converts would have been ineffectual, and the verse, therefore, has survived. On this and on the libels of converts, see William Popper's Censorship of Hebrew Books, New York, 1899, references and edicts, and the illustrations in JESV Censorship. Now, in the Islamic tradition, you have the prophetic teachings about going to the different places and finding knowledge, that you're not even allowed to lie to make a joke. So the Pauline ways, as I've indicated in that one program, St. Paul the Dishonest, is that what I call the program? You know, the history of this prayer and its association with martyrs deserves study. See J.E. and Abraham's this association, and the fact that it comes originally from the liturgy of the New Year, prayer book page 247, invest it with special solemnity. No Jew who recites it ever thinks of it in relation to Christians. The chief thought in his mind is the noble conclusion: it is, in fact, a universalist pronouncement of the messianic hope, and with this idea every service concludes, and that's H.L.'s note. A fine ancient prayer is that found in the liturgy for the New Year. See Abraham's Companion, page CXCVII, and more 264 and 210. 976, prayer book page 249. Our God and God of our fathers, reign thou in thy glory over the whole universe, and be exalted above all the earth in thine honor, and shine forth in the splendor and excellence of thy might upon all the inhabitants of thy world, that whatsoever has been made may know that thou hast made it, and whatsoever has been created may understand that thou hast created it, and whatsoever has breath in its nostrils may say, the Lord God of Israel is king, and his dominion rules over all. Sanctify us by thy commandments, and grant our portion in thy law. Satisfy us with thy goodness, and gladden us with thy salvation. O purify our hearts to serve thee in truth, for thou art God in truth, and thy word is truth, and endures forever. Blessed art thou, O Lord King, over all the earth, who sanctifies Israel and the day of memorial. Prayer book page 249. Highly curious in its realism is a recorded prayer of the high priest on the Day of Atonement. The last words mean the travelers, or more probably the pilgrims returning from Jerusalem, may pray for fine weather, but rain is a greater general need. 977, Leviticus R, Achare, Mote 24, Yoma 53b, Gaster Atonement Volume, page 175. How ran the prayer of the high priest on the Day of Atonement? When he left the Holy of Holies, he said, may it be thy will that this year be a year of rain and warmth and dew, a year of grace and blessing, a year of cheapness and of plenty, a year of good trade, and may thy people not need the help of one another, i.e., may all be independent, and let them not assume lordly power one over the other. And do thou pay no heed to the prayers of travelers, i.e., the returning pilgrims from Jerusalem. Leviticus R, Achare, Mote 24, Yoma 53b, Gaster Atonement Volume, page 175. H.L.'s note, the high priest was in a position of some difficulty, and we can well understand that he uttered a short prayer, for he was a Sadducee, and the Sanhedrin was predominantly Pharisee. The latter, urban inhabitants in Jerusalem, needed rain badly and immediately, for at the end of summer, when the Day of Atonement was celebrated, their cisterns were empty. The Sadducean farmers, however, had their wells and springs, and were not in such a hurry, and the pilgrims wanted to reach home in safety. The first rainfall made the roads impassable. One must not pray for something which one does not desire wholeheartedly. Hence arose the compromise which has lasted until this day. Very soon after the Day of Atonement, that is, at the conclusion of Tabernacles, 12 days later, the Orthodox Jews mention the rain. See prayer book, page 44, the footnote and the rubric. From the 4th of December, that is 60 days after the autumnal equinox, they pray for rain. The prayer book, page 47. See the variant in Gaster, page 32, and Abraham's notes in each case. See also the beginning of Ta'an and Bearer 5.2. On the whole question, see R. Finkelstein in Harvard Theological Review 22, number 3, July 1929, page 194, and that's H.L.'s note. By a fanciful interpretation of Isaiah 56:7, it was argued that God himself prays. What is his prayer? Rab said it ran thus. 978, Bearer 7a, may it be my will that my compassion may overcome mine anger, and that it may prevail over my attributes of justice and judgment, and that I may deal with my children according to the attribute of compassion, and that I may not act towards them according to the strict line of justice. Bearer 7a, and perhaps that's more of a warning to us to think, well, may we be the sort that would get the justice. May we be the sort that doesn't stir up the anger, that sort of stuff. In Palestine or Babylonia, rain was of enormous importance. We can gather that from the praise of rain, in which I may quote a few examples. 979, Ta'an 7a, Malter, page 39. R. Abahu said, the day of rain is more important than the day of resurrection, for the day of resurrection is for the righteous only, and not for the wicked, while the day of rain is for the righteous and for the wicked. Ta'an 7a, Malter, page 39. And before we get into H.L.'s note, everyone's going to go through it, but there's a difference between something being for you and something you're going to witness. The connection between the rain and the resurrection goes back to the Amidah, or even earlier, since the Amidah gives expression to an idea which is much older than itself. The first blessing of the Amidah, per book page 44, is called both or patriarchs, since it invokes the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, the God of Jacob. The second, which begins, Thou, O Lord, art mighty, is called mights or powers, and deals with two manifestations of God's might, the rain and the resurrection. The blessing was the first of the three tests. The synagogue being free to all, it might well happen that the leader of prayers held heretical views, and so if the Amidah was being recited by a Sadducee, he would be forced to avow his belief in the resurrection. The reference to rain would also be in the nature of a test to him. See the note to 878 above. But already in Isaiah 26:19, dew and resurrection are combined. It was a natural union. For as soon as the first rainfall comes after summer, the parched land of Palestine revives with such amazing rapidity that the most casual observer cannot fail to be struck by the connection. Now the God of Abraham, phrase comes from Moses at the burning bush, Exodus 3:6, and was a midrashic proof of the resurrection, God of the living, not of the dead. It is so used by Jesus, Mark 12:27, and when he says, Ye err, that ye know not the Scriptures, nor the power of God, Mark 12:24, he means that the resurrection is taught in the Scriptures, i.e. Moses at the bush, and in the Amidah, for power of God, is, in my opinion, a reference to the second blessing called powers, mights, Gebarot, the Hebrew word from which Gebarot is derived, often renders in the Septuagint, the Catholic translation. The Jewish one is lost to history as far as anyone knows. But the Greek root, which is used in the Gospels for power. H.L. 980 TJ on 3, section 3, folio 66C, line 28. 4. 4 sins. Rain is held back. 1. Idolatry. 2. Unchastity. 3. Bloodshed. 4. Because of those who promise publicly to give charity and do not give it. For the merit of 3 things, rain comes down, for the merit of the earth, for the merit of loving kindness, for the merit of sufferings, and for all 3 are indicated in the one verse of Job 37:13. He causes it to come, whether for correction or for his land or for mercy. TJ to on 3, section 3, folio 66C, line 28. 981. Midrash Psalm on 117, 240a, section 1. A philosopher asked, or Joshua B. Hananiah, at what time are all men equal, and when do the nations worship God? By nations, do they mean those, the Goyim, those who turned their back on God? That doesn't translate as nations. He replied, on the day when all rejoice. When is that? Said the other, when the heavens have been shut up, and all are in distress, and the rain comes down, and all rejoice and praise God. Ar Tanchum Bichia said, the falling of the rain is greater than the giving of the law, for the giving of the law was a joy only to Israel, while the failing of the rain is a rejoicing for all the world, including the cattle and the wild beasts and the birds. Midrash Psalm on 117, 240a, section 1. 982, Genesis R, Bereshit 13:4-6, the page 117. R. Hoshea said, great indeed is the force of rain, for it is equal to the whole creation. Word slipped out. R. Isaac said, rain wins God's favor like the sacrifices. R. Tanchum B. Chanile said, rain atones for sin. Archia Bar Abba said, rain is important as the resurrection of the dead. Word slipped out. Nay, it is even greater than the resurrection of the dead, for the resurrection applies only to man, rain to both man and beast, the resurrection only to Israel, rain both to Israel and the heathen. A heathen once acts are Joshua, B. Karcha, you have festivals and we have festivals. But when you rejoice, we do not. When we rejoice, you do not. When do we all rejoice? He replied, when it rains, as it is said, the meadows are clothed with flocks, the valleys are covered with corn, cereal grains. They shout for joy, yea, they sing, Psalm 65:13. And immediately after it says, shout with joy before God, all the earth, Psalm 66:1. It does not say priests, Levites, and Israelites, but shout for joy, all the earth. Genesis R, Bereshit 13:4-6, the page 117. For the question whether the resurrection was limited to Israel or whether it applied also to the Gentiles, see 1563, 1564. The sayings of R. Isaac and R. Tanchum are apparently as an abbreviated form, for rain is a sign that God's favor has been won. It is a sign that Israel's atonement has been accepted. Aforetime in Jerusalem, when public fasts were proclaimed under stress of scarcity, i.e. supplications for rain, no man was allowed to lead in prayer unless he too had an empty larder at home. Abraham's Studies in Pharisaism 211. 983 to on 2:2, Professor Danby's translation. They stood up in prayer and sent down before the ark an old man well versed in prayer, one that had children and whose house was empty of sustenance, so that he might Be wholehearted in prayer. On to Professor Denby's translation. In the daily Amidah for half the year, and the prayer about the resurrection. Thou, O Lord, art mighty forever. Thou quickenest the dead. Thou art mighty to save. After the words, thou art mighty to save, are inserted the words, thou causest the wind to blow and the rain to fall. Many are the stories about the men who prayed successfully for rain.